Boss Latino Goose and Batless back with another video, guys. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll also be putting up my little bro's gaming channel. He does a lot of funny moments, super underrated content, guys. Go check him out. So basically, if you haven't guessed from the title of this video, it's kind of a retrospective of Clone Wars and how it basically validated the prequels. And while we were watching the last episode of Season 7, and I'll put that we actually did a reaction in a video to that. So I'll put both of those reactions, there's two of them, because, you know, copyright, all that. I'll put both of those videos down in the description down below so you guys can go watch that. But anyway, so we're watching that. It ends, and I cry, of course, if you guys haven't watched the reaction. And the question comes to me as we're talking. Again, we talk a lot about geeky stuff and all that shit. The question comes to me, like, seeing as the success from Clone Wars and, like, how it fleshed out characters like Anakin, Obi-Wan, gave us new beloved characters like Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, just all these people, right? Like, I can go on and on and on about Clone Wars and gush about it for forever. And it came to me, like, if we got a series about the sequel trilogy that wasn't Resistance, and I'll get into Resistance, all right? I have my beef with Resistance, and I'll get to that. It basically, like, would it validate the sequels for a lot of people? I know there's a lot of topics we can cover because we talk so much, like, just at 2 a.m. because I'm getting, like, crackers and cheese at 2 a.m. because I'm fat. And we'll just, like, run off, like, what we would like to see from a series, of course, made by Dave Filoni, our Lord and Savior. So I was going to let you go first, but we had some technical difficulties.
Yes,
so I'll go first, guys, and just something I would love to see a lot. And and I know a lot of you guys would like to see would be basically between episode 8 and episode 9. So the series I'd like to see is probably like probably what most of you guys like to see, and that's basically race training. And I think we could definitely, since there is a time gap between episode 8 and episode 9, I think a lot of people would like to see more of not just race training. I say that, but I think that's something you can definitely explore in this series, but more so to flesh out also the Resistance versus the First Order. If there's one thing I felt that Resistance, the series, did really well, was giving some insight about the Resistance, how the New Republic weren't a big fan of the Resistance. They thought they were like this just like extremist group. And I'd like to see that get touched on more.
It did it again!
And I also feel that Resistance, another thing it did well was also kind of like give us some new insight on the First Order. And I think a series about that time era, just like how the Clone Wars dealt with the Clone Wars between, you know, episodes 2 and 3, of course. I think, I don't know, if they got the same amount of detail and attention that the Clone Wars did, maybe, and this is a huge maybe, guys, maybe we can get some more validation for people who weren't so hot on Rey, and just the sequel trilogy in general. I don't know how you feel about that, but...
Oh, how I feel about that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you look back, yeah, like, when the prequels first came out, people didn't like that, but, like, as time went on, they started becoming more fond of it, they started liking it, especially with Clone Wars, how everything just, you know, it just explained everything. People were like, okay, I like it, I'm starting to like it. I feel like they could do that with the sequels. I mean, there's still going to be people that, you know, hated it, despised it, and wish it never happened, but...
Which is okay.
Yeah,
we should have said that at the beginning, too. Mm-hmm. It is okay to hate the sequel trilogy and never... It's fine. Just like it's okay to love it. What's not okay, and I will make a stance on this, is telling people who either love or hate it that they're not real Star Wars fans. It just, you know, just... Again, respect each other, guys, you know, their opinions. It's super okay to hate this film and the sequel trilogy or whatever. And it's okay to like it too. So, continue as I lose subscribers. Sorry.
Go to Batless. But like some shows that explain things like, you know, characters just like switch personalities or whatever, like, or because of all the directors, how things just like switch in the story, they didn't feel like it had direction. I feel like background elements like shows like that could help like bridge the gaps and make it feel like it was one coherent story and that it was sort of planned out and not just, you know, like made up on the fly. So like I feel like maybe it's something with Poe Dameron where like it shows him becoming a leader from like being cocky like in The Last Jedi to being more of that leader role, and why Leia picked him in Rise of Skywalker. I feel like
Or
shows
the
like that.
Last Jedi, yeah. Yeah, this was his idea. He wants to focus more on a Poe Dameron-esque.
Yeah.
And I feel like this would be a good Disney Plus series instead of casting Andor, in my opinion. I like casting that's the guy we're talking about. I like casting Andor, and K2SO, but I like this idea better just because, again, there's just more media out there to help the sequel trilogy. Because if you look at the OG trilogy and especially the prequel trilogy, there's so much media, whether it be comic books, video games, TV shows, and of course the movies. The sequel trilogy has a lot of just all this content, and you look at the sequel trilogy, and you just have the sequel trilogy, and also Star Wars Resistance,
Star Wars Battlefront.
and I guess technically Star Wars
Technically, it
Battlefront
leads into it.
There's literally 30 minutes of gameplay from that. Spoilers, I guess. The
Yeah.
3-year-old game now. But yeah, see, that's all we've got. Even Battlefront 2, that plays into the
Last
OT,
Jedi.
the OT, like the beginning of the
original
game.
trilogy, and then
And it even goes back to prequel maps, like Naboo, you know. So like I said, I'd like to see more of this world because there is a whole lot you can go off of. Another idea, again, we're just pitching ideas basically. So if Disney wants to snag one of these, sure, just make sure you give me credit and a check, and sponsor me, and I'll totally sell out. But seriously, guys, another thing we're talking about too that I told you, as I clear my throat, is that one scene is in the Rise of Skywalker where Luke and Leia are training. I'd like to see, again, I know this is not technically, or it can. It's not technically a sequel trilogy, but it will lead into it, kind of the same way that
Mando.
Clone Wars leaned into Episode 3, or or Mando kind of is somewhat leading into sequel trilogy sequel trilogy era. I'd like to see Luke training his Jedi, training Ben. I'd love to see Ben Solo. If there was, I think even you could say that one of the best things about the sequel trilogy,
Adam Driver.
Yeah, Adam Driver kills it. I love Kylo Ren / Ben Solo. I would love to see more of that Ben Solo, how he gets seduced by Snoke, / Palpatine,
/ clone.
Yeah, I'd like to see that training too. Maybe some training of before Ben's alive, but stuff like that, kind of preluding and because it would also help people who weren't so happy with Luke's arc in the sequel trilogy. You can give that a bit of, and I know it's not technically sequel trilogy, but Luke's arc plays so much into the hate of the sequel trilogy that giving that some more fleshing out, explaining a little bit more of why Luke's kind of having these doubts about Ben, or seeing his gradual change into him becoming a hermit to how we see him in The Last Jedi. I think that again, I think it would just help out the sequel trilogy as a whole, and plus you can add new characters in there. There's so many possibilities that you can go with. Again, it's a huge world. Star Wars is a huge world, and there's so much to do. You could even do what Rebels did, and kind of tell its own story, or what Mando's doing, but bring in familiar characters that we know, as cameos, just to tie it into the world. But again, make it its own story. And I don't know. We're rambling again because this is what we do at 2 a.m. I come down, like I said, and we're rambling about if we can get a series like that, that's not Resistance, because I guess let's talk about Resistance for a split second. And I watched it. You did not.
I did not. I didn't really care for it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to like. It's very, very, very kid friendly. And when I mean kid friendly, it makes season 1 of Rebels. If you've watched Rebels, it makes that look like The Mandalorian. I mean, it's super slapstick humor. There is some good stuff in there, and again, it comes from when you learn about the Resistance, or when Poe Dameron's in there, or Captain Phasma, or the First Order, or whatever. Again, so I feel that if we just got more of that, more lore, more explaining how this world works, it could work, And again, at the end of the day, I did not despise Resistance, but it could have been so much, especially because Dave Filoni was involved with it. I don't think he was super involved, because I think he was more focused on The Mandalorian, which obviously makes sense. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if he I don't know the specific dates he was working on Resistance and Mando. Um, but yeah, are there any like what else could we see from like a sequel series?
I pitched this to you not too long ago, where like I was thinking about like a First Order one shot series, where like every episode maybe there's like 2 to 3 episodes on a certain character.
Oh yeah, yep.
Where it tells First Order stories, right? What they had to do, what they were going through, what their life was like, some like like defects, trying to getting out of the First Order and all that. Where like you get maybe like 2 to 3 episodes with a certain like cast, and then they switch over, and it just tells what the First Order did, and like what like what they were doing. And
So like basically like an anthology film, and again Disney has a platform to do this with Disney Plus, and I think that would be kind of cool to see. It's definitely a risk because it's not the norm, obviously, to tell Star Wars stories like that, but I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think
Especially from the First Order. I would love to see from their perspective and to learn more about them. So it's a cool idea. I actually dig that. So
yeah, because like that's what the Force Awakens tried to do with Finn, is to show that not all the stormtroopers, yeah, stormtroopers were just like mindless goons. Some of them like had personalities. Some of them were people. But then to kind of like stop that and just like, all right, kill all of them. So I think with this show we can flesh out some of the First Order troopers, and you can kind of feel. I don't want you
kind of humanize them.
You can humanize them, yeah. So they're just not like goons, that are just meant to be shot at.
That's what Clone Wars did to the clones.
Yeah,
exactly. Like we cried over Rex and Jet. Oh my God! Sorry, spoilers. We I'm not gonna say exactly, but watch reaction or just watch Clone Wars. It's so great. But yeah, you feel for these clones. They're not just random people and clones and helmets. And yeah, that'd be really cool to give them to humanize the stormtroopers. I don't think we've really seen that too much. We kind of saw a snippet of it in Mando in the last episode, and this is minor, not a huge spoiler. It's more of a skit, but there's 2 stormtroopers on the bike when they punch Baby Yoda. That kind of like back and forth and like just talking the shit. It was really cool, and I'd like to see more. I mean, not probably as comedic, but definitely more. Not super serious, because Star Wars is, I don't know. I feel like it shouldn't take itself too seriously, because it is fantasy adventure, But I definitely like to see the life and like just the like you said, like the hardships of
everyday
stormtroopers. I almost said clone troopers again. I'm so fixated on the Clone Wars.
I want to be like an office or like undercover boss at SNL for Adam Driver.
Oh God, yeah.
Where it's just like it's interviewing stormtroopers. Like, how are you liking Starkiller Base? Oh, it's good and all, really messy, killing a lot of people, all that fun stuff. Just like maybe like a skit every now and then like that. But like, yeah, I want it to be where you just you humanize them, you flesh out the First Order, because like you can have so many stories with that, because like they explain that like they take like, little kids, right?
Yeah.
And like there's so much you can do with that, and I feel like a show like that would just like it would make the sequel trilogy like a little better, like it would give something to it, because like it just felt bland. It felt like it didn't have too much life into it. Like it wasn't like look at the Marvel movies with Disney, and you see like they're all connected. They have a lot of passion put into it. But then you look at Star Wars, and it feels like something's missing there. It's like at the back of their minds, they don't really care for it. They're just pushing on other stuff. And I feel like they need a show like that. Show that like, okay, we still care. We still want something good with it. We should do this.
Which I think they did with Mando.
Yeah.
And the Clone Wars, the season 7 was made. Well, Disney had it at the time, but there's potential with that. So especially with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, those two together are so far making really good content, and especially Dave when it comes to animation. I'd love to see him continue. I want to see his next project. The rumored project coming up is a Rebels sequel, but I don't know if that's true or not. And then I've heard a Ahsoka series might come out. So, again, like, trying to think of like more like we've talked so much about like what we would like to see personally. There's so much you can go the Mando route and do like criminal underworlds. Like if you want to do all those crime syndicates, there's that. Maybe you see Han in there. Maybe, I don't know. You could definitely go that route and do like that canceled Star Wars 1313 style type of stuff. The way it kind of you can see Mando definitely like pulling stuff from that. Um, but yeah, there's you could do so much world building with these like TV series, and again, like you get so much screen time that you're able to tell a story. You're not restricted with the 2.5 hour runtime to like zoom through planets or zoom through characters. Like you can actually like enjoy the Star Wars universe, you know. And again, I'm trying to think of another one. I'm sure we've talked about more.
Oh, I got one.
Do you have one? Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
And I lost it.
And there it goes.
And there it goes.
So.
Oh wait, I got it back. I got it back. Okay, so like, think of it like I think of it like maybe like a bounty hunting maybe, or it's like it doesn't show the resistance. It doesn't show the First Order per se. Like it's not like a perspective. It's like the third person, you know. Where
okay,
it's
yeah,
like,
I think I remember hearing you talk about this.
Where it shows both sides, where it shows like the First Order, even though they're bad people, you know, they kind of like they want to take over, you know, have this whole order thing, like, but they still help. They're like a police, you know, maybe a corrupt police, but they're still like that, where they're helping people throughout the universe. And like the rebels, they have good intentions, but sometimes they cause too much chaos. Like sometimes lives get in the way. Like when they're attacking the First Order, sometimes like people get hurt and all that. And it shows from like these people, like what's going on, like, you know, like that's why people like, okay, maybe we want to join the First Order, maybe we want to join the Resistance. It's like, oh, but the Resistance are good, that's why we join them. But it shows what the First Order are doing. So it's like that's why I feel like the ending of like Rise of Skywalker, where like Lando brings in everybody, I feel like this would help that out more.
Yeah.
So where it's like, okay, yeah, it's like it doesn't explain like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go fight the First Order. Why not? It shows. It shows like, okay, the First Order did something to these people. That's why they want to fight. That's why they're there for them. So I feel like that also fleshes that out.
Yeah, and like going off of themes of again, I'm sorry bringing up old shows, but the Clone Wars season 7 goes through a tiny bit. It touches a tiny bit about people who view our heroes as the bad guys. Mm-hmm. You know, the general public, how they view certain things. And again, I touched on Resistance. And again, like I said, I didn't hate it. There were some themes, again, like I wish they fleshed out. And one of the themes was that kind of how the New Republic and just regular people saw the New Order, or the New Order.
The first.
Technically, it wasn't the New Order in Rise or Skywalker, wasn't it?
No, it was the Final Order.
Final Order.
Final Order.
Basically, how like the average Joe saw the Resistance, the First Order. One of the characters in Resistance, her grandfather fought for the Empire because that's what paid the bills, and to her, that was just a job, you know. So you're gonna have to guess the average person didn't know about the Death Star, right? That's kind of like a top secret plan. If you want to correlate that to real world stuff, what average soldier would know about the making of, like, let's say the atomic bomb, right? Mm-hmm. Or again, I don't know. Again, people who are historians, correct me. Where I was going. Yeah. But yeah, I like those themes of like just the average Joe's perspective of the galaxy, because again, like of course us as the viewer, like we know the Resistance is they're technically the good guys, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
it's
very
bad,
hero villain.
Yeah.
And it's cool to kind of give that gray area, and which brings me to my last. Remember, speaking of gray, again, I don't mean to like cut off that too much, but one of the biggest things too we were talking about is obviously, spoiler alert for the Rise of Skywalker.
It's been out since December.
It's still it's still relatively new.
It's about to get to that 6 months where we can start talking about it.
But anyways, this is a fair warning. Mm-hmm. At the end of Rise of Skywalker, Rey assumes the title of Rey Skywalker, to the delight of this guy. And presumably, I'm guessing she's going off to create a new Jedi.
Yeah.
However, I feel like, again, like going off what The Last Jedi was doing and trying to set her up as this like morally gray Jedi, like Qui-Gon Jinn, right?
Right, yeah.
You know, and I'd like to see, I should say morally gray, because Qui-Gon wasn't morally gray. It was more like he definitely did not agree with the Council's rules, I guess, like the way that they thought that a regular Jedi should act. He definitely was not about that. So it'd be cool to see like Rey, continue that maybe. that like she's learned from Luke, who learned again like that. Hey, the dark side or using the dark side of the Force isn't really necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're a dark Jedi or a Sith. You know, as long as you can control your actions. You know, so it'd be cool to see I guess Rey learning that and kind of creating this new type of like I don't know, just like different kind of type of Jedi that we've seen. You know, that are super like bound to their rules. You know, so tightly, which caused them to fall during the prequels.
Yeah, like touch on that. Like that also reminded me like how I was thinking like how I wanted it to end for Rise of Skywalker. Like I wanted to like Rey to realize that she wasn't a Jedi, because she had a lot of hatred in her and all that. She was very tempted with the dark side, and that Kylo wasn't a Sith. You know, he wasn't supposed to be a Sith. He was supposed to be a Knight of Ren, but pretty much turned him to a Sith, and that he wasn't a Sith, and that he still had light side tendencies into him. And I wanted them to combine that and make like a new, like, not Jedis, not Sith, but like Skywalkers was like this new order, where like you have the light side, you don't really dabble into the dark side, but you learn it and you learn to understand it, to appreciate all sides of the Force, right?
Because technically Palpatine was right.
Right. Yeah.
One's knowledge, like you must learn all of the Force, not just the light or the dark. You know.
Mace Windu knew that, and that's why he had the purple lightsabers, because he dabbled with the dark side, but he stood with the light.
His fighting style was tapping, from what I understand. His fighting style tapped into the dark side.
Yeah, he tapped into like other users' dark sides, and he used it to help him fight. That's why like he was afraid to fight Grievous and all that, because Grievous learned his style, and also that then Grievous wasn't Sith. He didn't have the Force or nothing like that. So that was why Mace was afraid to fight Grievous. But I feel like they could do something like that. Have Rey start that up. And I feel like that would be better for Skywalker. That's how Rey becomes a Skywalker, and that's like identity fraud.
Yeah, and I wasn't too. I was 50-50 on the whole Rey Skywalker thing when it happened in theaters. I wasn't like and I wasn't like fuck that. Like I was like okay. I was like it makes sense. The story they were telling, like obviously, right? You see the title of the third movie in the trilogy, and you're like, obviously it's Rey. Obviously it's gonna be Rey. It's gonna be Rey Skywalker. I'd love to see it. I would have loved to it. Yeah, I would have loved for it to have been Ben, because technically he was the last Skywalker. But yeah, we get what you get.
So
no,
you want you do fine. You do it. It's your channel. Let's see how it is. I'm a guest.
All right, guys. So I think we're gonna wrap this up. We've been ranting, I guess. But again, this is probably like 10 views. Like us, but this is something that we've been wanting to talk about, because I do truly feel that basically at the end of all of this, basically let's provide more content, provide more just flesh out the characters, because it could truly, again, if Dave, obviously this all hinders on Dave Filoni, if he's at the helm doing this, I feel that we could get something really, really cool, the same way Clone Wars did to the
prequels.
Yeah. Well, the Clone Wars did the prequel trilogy. I feel that a series like that could help the sequel trilogy so much. And I think that's where I'm going to end it. So I don't know if you have any closing thoughts.
I have one.
What is it?
To whoever watches this in Disney, if you do.
If you do, yeah.
If you do. Heavy if. Give us more John Boyega. That's all I ask. More John Boyega.
Yeah, that isn't just screaming Rey. He's way talented actor for that. But, alright guys, I think that's going to do it. Again, Batless, I'll leave his channel down below. I'm Latudo Goose, and adios.